Hey guys, today I'll be teaching you how to tape a Sabre properly as according to Lamar High School Winter Guard as of 2025. So what you'll need for this obviously is your Sabre. You'll need a roll of white electrical tape. I like Scotch electrical tape, and I just get it at Home Depot, but there's also, I know, a couple of brands on Amazon that might be cheaper or easier to access than Scotch. So you won't need the entire roll of white and you won't need the entire roll of black. So just like whatever you have left. And then it's your preference if you want to use scissors or not. It's just whether you want like cleaner lines or not. But we're going to start with taping the blade, which can be a little difficult if you've never done it before, especially since you kind of have to be a little bit of a perfectionist about it, but it's whatever. So we're going to start at the bottom of the blade right here where it meets the basket. And I'm going to try to line up the tape all the way flush against the basket. And I do a little bit over so that I can line up, and then I'll fold this side over onto the back. So that side is also flush now, or as flush as you can get it. So I'll circle back again to the front, keeping it tight. And then now I've done one loop around the very bottom. From here, I'm going to start to candy cane my way up the entirety of the blade. But what's different about this is that you have to start doing it at an angle. So I take the blade and I hold it under my left arm, and I'm holding the tape with my right arm. And then I'm slowly going to start pulling it. I usually take my pointer finger and wrap it under my thumb and push it over. That way I can get a tight pull as I start to bring it, sorry, this is hard to see, as I start to bring it at an angle. So this angle, I don't know what degree it is. You can make up whatever degree you think it is. But you're going to do one, and then you're going to start to overlap it with the, the line that you just did. And you're going to keep rotating the blade. It doesn't matter what side you start on, but you're going to want to overlap the two. So like if this was one, and instead of having the next like line of tape going around, instead of having it be like right on top of each other, you're going to want to overlap it. Not a ton, just, I don't know how to describe how big it's going to be. It's going to be very, very little, very, very small. Just the tiniest bit of an overlap so that the blade can be nice and pretty. And you're going to want to keep this sizing of the overlap consistent all the way up the blade, which shouldn't be a problem because your tape is going to stay at the same angle the entire way up. So it should naturally stay the same size, but there's a little bit of adjusting that you have to do as you move it up. So I'm going to be doing that for the next little while, but we can check in a minute. Okay guys, I just finished taping or candy caning all the way up the length of the Sabre. You can see my overlaps. You can see the difference between where it's just been one layer and where one layer here and then two layers here and here. So I'm stopping about an inch-ish from the top of the blade because we're going to tape over that later anyways. So now it's time to go back down the blade. We're going to use the same technique we just did with the overlapping of the two circles of tape. And you can choose your own adventure. You can either cut this piece of tape and then start it again at a different angle, or I just wrap it in a circle and then just start going down again. Really personal preference. It doesn't matter which one. They both get the same result. But you'll start going back down the blade, this time at the opposite angle. So what's going to happen is you just went candy caned all the way up at this angle. You're going to candy cane down at this angle. So at the end, it should look like you have a bunch of X's all the way down your blade from your tape. So same technique, same exact thing, go all the way down, and I will see you there. Okay guys, I am about an inch from the bottom of my Sabre. We just finished candy caning all the way down, so now I don't know if you can see this, but we've got lines going both ways to make a little X. And now we're going to finish off from the bottom. So you'll finish your last candy cane, how many more of those you can do. I think I have 2 left. And then just like we did at the beginning, we're going to make it sit flush with where the basket is and just wrap it around a couple more times. So this can be a little bit tricky, especially if you want to get it tight, but it is doable. Just got to pull it. And then personal preference, if you want to rip the tape, you can, but I am going to choose to cut my piece of tape. And then just finish this out, wrapping it around the exact same spot at the bottom of the blade. And then after this, we are going to move to the tip of our blade. So, ta-da! Now your blade is all covered from the bottom to almost the tip. So, important things for the tip. It really is just your personal preference. If you want your tip to be more rectangular or more circular, just whatever makes your heart happy or whatever you think helps rotations the most. But I like to start, I'm going to do one side, just tape a circle. And then from that circle, we're going to pull the tape out, however long your heart tells you need to do. And we're just going to roll it up. The point is to get the tape as twisted as possible because this is going to be the padding that goes on our blade tips so that we don't hurt ourselves or the blade. So it can get a little annoying to have to spin this around all the time, but it is okay. Okay, so once you've twisted it to your satisfaction, once it's as tight as you think it needs to be, we're going to take it and we're going to start from right here. We're just going to tape in circles. These circles will sit flush against each other. You don't have to try to overlap it or anything crazy like that. And you're just going to go all the way up the tip of your blade. Sometimes you will have to pull out a little bit more tape and wind up just so that you can get there all the way without having too many gaps in your tape. But most of the time, I think I pick the right size of tape. So we'll just tape that all the way up the blade, or the tip of it at least, until we get to the very tip. So I've taped all the way up here, and I still have a little bit of rolled up tape left, so I'm going to do a couple more layers just around the very top to get it to the size I want. From here, you're going to make a little donut. I need a little bit more. So we're going to make a little donut, wrap it around, and then here's the tricky part. You have to tape it downwards. So let me see if I can get y'all. From here, we did a little donut, except she's not sitting right. Then we're going to take the tape, flip it to whichever side it naturally wants to go to with the stickiness. And we're just going to tape over the tip. And this is where I will start cutting it, just to get those crisp lines. And I tape it all the way so that it goes past where the rolled up is. So now your tip's gonna look something like this, and probably really ugly on this side, but it's okay. We are going to make it look pretty. So now you're going to take another small piece. This one is going to go from one side of the blade to the other. So however long you made your tape rolling, that's how long you'll need to make it. I like to start on the side that I didn't just tape down. So I'll start on the bare side. Tape it a little bit further down than the rolled up part goes. And then go all the way over to the other side, making sure I pull tight as possible and then pressing that down. So now your tip is kind of in this little taco, which is a little bit weird. It's okay. So we're going to close that taco off the same way we've done everything else. Start at the bottom of where you just taped. Do one circle, and then we're going to start winding upwards. Doesn't matter the overlap on this one. If you want it to be perfect, you can make it perfect. But once again, just personal preference at this point. As long as you make sure you have all the sides covered. Once you get to the top, you can stop. Once again, personal preference. But I like to go down one more time just to make sure that everything is nice and tight. All right. And then if you want to rip it, you can. If you want to cut it, you can. Up to you. But from here, we are done taping a tip. So you can finish that off. And voila, here's your tip taped perfectly. So now that we are done with the blade and it looks very, very nice and pretty, it's time to move on to the hilt. And the hilt can be a little bit difficult, but I have a bunch of little tips and tricks to help y'all with that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to tape the little button on the bottom of this, which can be difficult, especially since it's in such an awkward position. But what we're going to do, take a strip of tape, doesn't really matter how long, and we're going to fold it up. I try to make it a square as much as possible, but today I did a rectangle, which is completely okay. So you're going to fold that in and just continuously fold it on top of itself so that it bunches up into a little bit of like padding is what we're basically making. Padding for the bottom of the hilt so that when you drop it, it doesn't injure the blade or injure the hilt, I would say. From here, once you're done taping this, you're going to stick it on the bottom of the blade. And what I like to do is I don't fold it up all the way. I'll leave a little tail out so that I can put it on here, and then there's already a little bit of a built-in tape that you can fold down and onto it. And then obviously this little flap will hang out because it's not taped down on the other side, but we're about to do that. Goodness, cannot find the edge. There we go. Okay, same thing, just a little strip of tape, and really nothing special about getting this on there. Just make sure that it's on there tight. And it's definitely going to look a little weird at first because it's a big fat lump, but we're about to make it look a lot prettier. So we are going to tape the grip part so that there's no silver showing, and this can be super awkward if you're using like a full brand new roll of tape. If you have a smaller, older one, it should be fine in terms of getting the roll through the basket. Mine isn't gonna fit, so what I usually do for that is I'm just gonna rip off a big piece, or cut off, I should say, and then we're just gonna thread this through instead of trying to fit the whole roll. So similar to how we started the blade, we are going to take a piece of tape, a long piece of it, and we're going to try and set it up flush to where the basket is, starting right here. And then, like normal, we're going to do one circle around. And it's going to be a little bit difficult to start to try and get this piece of tape through, especially if you're trying to stop it from sticking to itself. But as you go, you'll learn tips and tricks that work for you and work for your pieces of tape. It really does differ from length to length, but okay. So once that's through, we are going to go all the way to the other side to finish our first circle. From here, we are going to start candy caning up, but if you've noticed, there's these little ridges where your hands go, well, where your fingers go. And in order to prevent any unwanted bumps in the tape, we're going to have to learn how to pull it super duper tight, which I will show you how in just a second. So what I like to do is same thing that I did for the blade a little bit. I take my pointer finger under, my thumb over, and then as I pull back with my pointer finger, I press down with my thumb. And that makes it a nice and tight wrap. And then we're going to continue to do that up the blade. Well, sorry, up the hilt. Usually until you run out of your tape, and then you'll get another piece. But alright, so I just ran out of tape, and I'm about a fourth finished with the full taping of the hilt. But I only have like one more finger section to tape over, and I'm going to stop there. Which, if you have longer, keep going. But if you ran out in like the same spot as me, you can go ahead and start taping the rest of the bottom of your hilt. I like to take small little strips just because it's so awkward to try and reposition the tape from all of these different crazy spots. But I just placed one right over where the basket meets the bottom. And instead of trying to force these pieces of tape to go downward, I'm going to try to follow where they want to go, which is often to the angle, which is completely okay because they're small little strips of tape. And then once again, pulling back with that pointer finger and pushing down with that thumb to make a nice and tight fold. Then, just like we did to the front, we're going to do it to the back of where we placed that piece of padding. This time though, our tape is going to want to fold in the opposite diagonal, which is totally chill. So, placing that down, pulling to that diagonal. Same thing with the other side, placing it down, pulling to the diagonal. And if it gets into these finger grooves, that's perfectly fine. That's what we wanted anyways. So just push those in. Now, we are going to continue with taping the fingers part. I don't know what's called. So I'm going to rip a fairly big piece of tape. And then I'm going to pick up where I left off. I like to overlap it a little bit just to make sure that I'm not missing any spots. And then just continue the exact same I just did. Now though, we are taping over the diagonal strips we just placed down to cover the padding. This ensures that like the padding like for sure won't come off unless of course you rip the tape, which you're gonna have to retape it anyways if you rip the tape. So just making sure that I'm pulling this tight all the way across. Alright, and once you've covered your last piece of Sabre with your tape, you are all done taping your Sabre. And then now's the time where you would write your name on it. We write them right here on the little rectangle pieces that we've circled over so many times. Usually just first initial, last initial, and then on the other side, if you have a symbol, you can do that. But yeah. That's your Sabre, all nice and finished. Okay, so last but not least, which I completely forgot about, you're going to have to put your tapes back on. So, you have, this is your Sabre, here's your hilt. You can have, well, you need to have a tape right here. We literally just call it the tape. And then you can have a catch tape right here if you want, personal preference. So, in order to get it right, we're going to go ahead and peel off a little bit of white tape just to have prepped and ready for us. And then you're going to start at the tip, do a fist, do another fist, and then you're going to do 2 fingers. Then that's where you're going to put your piece of tape right there. And once you fold one side over, we're going to do 3 like circles around it. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll cut that little tail off, fold it back over, and then you are all set to go. If you want a catch tape, which is usually a little strip of black tape, you can start by finding your balance point. Just bring your fingers together wherever it balances, is usually where it is. Let's say about here, maybe a little bit further down. Yeah, about here. And you're just going to take, I need to mark where this is. You're just going to take a little piece of black tape, really super small. It does not need to be big at all. A little piece of tape. And you're just going to put it right there. It's important to have it on the correct side of the saber. So you're going to put your hilt in your left hand, and the piece of tape is going to be facing you. This is so that when you're tossing a hilt toss, it'll rotate with the black tape facing you. That way you can watch it spin in the air and catch it correctly. So, congrats on taping your saber.